Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the weekly book steep where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. Again, I do not have tea because it is 40 degrees here, which is 104 for those of you who do not do Celsius. I need a cold drink, and so today's cold drink is cherry juice with soda water and a whole lot of ice because I'm not coping and it's only 9:30. Alright, this is my reading week from the 17th to the 23rd of January. I read 19 things this week, 12 of which were part of a video project that came out earlier in the week, so you've already heard me talk about 12 of them. What I read accounted for 2,227 pages. I had one reread this week, 2 DNFs, and as I said, 12 project books. I do have a kids review title. This happens to be a young adult title. It is coming out this week. It is Red Star Rebels by Amie Kaufmann, which is her most recent YA sci-fi release. This was sent to me for review by Ellen and Unwin, so thank you very much to them. It is the story of a stowaway on a Mars station, as well as the billionaire son of a family who helped colonize Mars. They get stuck on this station. The billionaire son is there with nobody knowing that he's there. He's been estranged from his mother and his sister for a number of years. His father has died. He's decided to come up to Mars to prove that he's worthy of being part of the family. And Cleo is a stowaway who managed to get herself onto Mars and has been hiding herself on this station for a significant period of time. At the very start of this book, this station has an emergency alarm goes off. Everyone evacuates except for these two who are not entered into the system legally. And they think they're going to die, except they realize that the station's not venting. It's not doing what it's supposed to do in this emergency. And then other people arrive and begin taking control of the station. And they have a countdown running. There is 8 hours before the station explodes. And Hunter and Cleo have to A, try and survive, and B, try and share who is behind all of this and what they're doing. It's actually not a very long YA book, but it was very fast-paced. A countdown always adds something to a sci-fi adventure story because it gives you a sense of pace, regardless of how well-paced the story is written, although this is done pretty well because Amie Kaufmann is very familiar with how to write this kind of story. It was fun. Cleo is a very competent character who is running from her past on Earth and trying to forge a new life for herself, and Hunter is trying to prove that he is worth something, and he has to question whether the values that his family holds are the same values that he holds, and that is always a really fun dynamic. I really enjoyed this. Thanks to Ellen and Unwin for sending it to me. It was a fun read. My reread this week was Archangel's Blade by Nalini Singh, which I will be talking about in a live show in less than 2 hours. So I'm not going to talk about it here. There will be an entire live show and I will leave that linked somewhere for you to find. It is the 4th book in the Guild Hunter series. It follows vampires and angels, and in this case we are following Raphael's second, who is a very, very old vampire called Dimitri. Head over to the live show if you want to know more. The project books that I had were all the novellas for the Fresh Start promo. I have that full video on my channel already. The promo runs through until the 30th of January, so if you're watching this video, you have a couple of days to get all of these novellas for free if you would like them. So follow that link and you can find out how to get there. All right, let's talk about the other books that I read this week. There are 3. Yes, 3 more that I have to talk about. So there is Protected by Claire Kent. I am trying very, very hard to catch up with Claire Kent's books that are set in her dystopian romance world. That's one of my goals this year, is to try and catch up. I've got a bit of a way to go, but I will attempt to get as far as I can, when I can, where I can. I forget exactly where it fits in the timeline. Claire Kent does have a timeline of where all her stories, because this is set in the same world as Kindled and Haven and all of that kind of stuff. So Protected is the story of Lila, who I think was with her boyfriend for a significant period of time after the world ended, and he has died. And so she is on her own, and she spots this convoy coming through and realizes they have trucks and possibly supplies, and so she hides in a spot where no one usually finds her and waits them out, and then goes to steal some things from the truck, except gets found out. She's given the option of joining them because they recognize that she's on her own and that she needs help, and that the leader of this group doesn't tolerate cruelty to women unless they really, truly break the rules. And so she ends up traveling with them. So this book is part road trip, definitely dystopian, and one of the men deck takes it upon himself to act as her protector and to keep her safe. He is non-verbal, and that is dealt with through the book, and he doesn't magically become verbal because of falling in love, which I appreciated. Well, there's a couple of really great scenes because Lila starts teaching Deck some sign language so that they can communicate. But she also does point out that, you know, if he never talks to her, that's okay because they've got their way of communicating. He's demonstrated in other ways how much he loves her. But she says, I'm ever here if you ever want to explore what that might look like for you. Again, great conversation because there was no pressure placed on anyone, and it was made really, really clear that it didn't matter. It was just there as a support and a acknowledgement that someone would be there to support him if he so chose. As with all of these stories, you have very alpha male characters. The heroines in this series are pretty good at saving themselves, but they do end up in some really silly situations at times. It kind of balances us out. I trust Claire Kent in writing this. There's not very many authors that I would just randomly pick up with these kinds of tropes, because I don't think it's always done particularly well, but Claire Kent has proven time and time again that she does manage the dynamics really well. As with all the books, content warnings for attempted essay, not main male character against the female character, other characters, violence, gun violence, lots of blood, gore. There's betrayal in here that doesn't end well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy this world because I'm so many books into it now that I just can fall into it and I know exactly sort of what we're going to get. Then there is Domcom by Adriana, which is coming out very soon. And this is her most recent traditionally published contemporary rom-com with a kinky side. I really enjoy Adriana. I think the first book of hers I ever read was Whiteout, and that's kind of set the tone. And while I haven't gone back to reread that, maybe that should be something that I try and reread this year. She just does a really good job of creating fun, funny, compelling characters and blending kink into that. And this one probably has a little bit more of an explanation for people who might be unfamiliar with it, because our main character is coming into the kink world for the first time. But it doesn't feel like it's been overplayed in terms of info dumping and fully going into teaching mode. It's more the main character needs to learn the ropes, and her love interest is trying to manage that when he really doesn't want to actually be teaching anyone. So this is the story of Ray. She has known about this kink club for a while. The book opens with her kind of deciding whether or not she's going to go into this kink club for the first time. She kind of walks past and gets called out by the bouncer on the door, who's a really fun character called Harlow. It's revealed that she wants to go in, and basically she gets called out for being a chicken. And so Harlow helps her go in. It turns out it's a dom sub speed dating night, which is kind of a new concept for the club. And that's when we meet Grant, who's a silent owner in the club. He spots Ray immediately. He's attracted to her physically, but basically recognizes that she's a baby sub, and he has absolutely no interest in teaching new subs. He doesn't want anyone to get attached to him or anything like that. He's been burnt and he's over it. But he does end up talking to her at one point. They hit it off. They have a non-sexual scene, and then she leaves. And this becomes a bit of a habit. It really gets to him. A couple of days later, she goes back to the office for work. They've been working remotely for a period of time, but the boss has called them back in. No one really knows why, but they're going to be working on site, and she comes back in. She works for a tech startup company. Her boss is portrayed very hippie-like, but she's very intelligent. Ray is the HR manager for the company. And then we meet a motley crew of this company who are all just a little bit off the wall. And then Grant walks in, and Grant has been hired by the owner of the company to help find basically a mole in the company who's been leaking information to the owner's son-in-law, who is trying to take control of the company. And Grant makes it very, very clear straight away that there is going to be nothing between Ray and Grant because they're working together. They end up having to share an office. They start this ridiculous rule list, or Grant starts it, and Ray continues it, where they come up with a series of rules what they can and can't do in the office. And it goes on from there. And obviously they end up breaking all of those rules. And there's the little bit of corporate espionage things that's going on. Ray still doesn't really know what Grant is doing there, doesn't know about that corporate espionage side until a little bit later on. But it was really fun. It was really entertaining. The characters were delightful. The side characters were great as well. I had such a fun time with it, and I'm really glad that I picked it up this week because I was just kind of that palate cleanser read that I needed. Very steamy, very fun, highly enjoyable. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is Hot Dish by Annabeth Albert, which is another short in the Mount Hope series that's come out this month. In this one, we are following Stu and Percy, who are neighbours. Percy is a paramedic, used to be a firefighter. Stu is an art teacher and a single dad. And they've kind of been eyeing each other up across the fence for a little while, and their children really, and Stu's children really connive a reason to force them to talk to one another. And they enter into this kind of friends with benefits kind of situation, which eventually Stu calls Percy out and says, well, actually, this means something to me. And the way that you talk about what we're doing actually doesn't make me feel good. And so there's a good call out. We like to see it. So it was fun. It was short. It's only about 60 pages long. I really enjoyed it. Queer contemporary romance. I am currently reading Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy? Charlotte McConaghy? I think that's the author. I've got the audiobook out from Libby. I am probably about 75% of the way into the book, so I'll be talking about it next week, but I'm really enjoying it. I like stories that are set in remote islands, particularly in Australia, and we love a seed bank story with a bit of a mystery going on as well. So I think we're at the very, very pointy end of figuring everything out. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I might finish it today actually. And then I do have a couple of things that I need to get to next week, mostly because they're things for review. From Allen and Unwin, I have Pirate Academy Missing at Sea. This is the second book in the Pirate Academy series. What else did I say I have to read? The Witching Hours by Heather Graham, which is a NetGalley arc that I have. Actually, all of these are NetGalley, 2 of these are NetGalley arcs. So Agnes Auberts, Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett. I would like to try and get to this week because it does release the following week. And Peaches and Pucks by M.A. Wardell, which is a hockey novella, queer hockey novella. I think it's a novella. I did get a ARC copy of this, very excited about that. And also it's January 26th in a couple of days. And on January 26th, I tend to read as many First Nations authors as I can. I am going to vlog what I read just because I think it's an interesting way and gives me more of an opportunity to kind of talk about books and my first thoughts and things like that. But I'm not going to try and do what I did last year, which was how much reading can I do in 8 hours, because it's the day before I go back to work. So I think I'm going to just try and read whatever I can read in that time. So far I have a picture book, a middle fiction, and an adult title, which I think is a good mix. I have One Race by Gregg, Dreise, and yes, I know I could read this in 3 seconds, but I want to save it for the 26th. I have Brightest Wild by Tania, Crampton-Larking. And also, I think it's finally time I get to Murriyang Song of Time by Stan Grant. And essentially, that is my reading. So stay tuned. You'll hear more about these books coming soon, hopefully. In the comments, I'd love to know, what have you been reading in the last week? What stood out to you? Feel free to let me know down below. Otherwise, feel free to leave your current favorite emoji down below to let me know that you're here. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.